We'll get going with the meeting today. Hi, everybody. Great to have you with us for the AWHI Residential Working Group call for May 2025. I'm Joe Wachunas with New Buildings Institute, here with you as usual. We've got a great agenda. We'll go through our antitrust compliance, look at our agenda a little bit, do just a couple announcements, and then we'll get into our presentations for today. So, as usual, we'll read our antitrust compliance statement. The Advanced Water Heating Initiative is a member-supported collaborative of professionals from across the U.S., and this diverse membership includes numerous competitors, and care must be taken to scrupulously abide by federal and state antitrust laws. Members should remember that antitrust compliance is important at all times. At this and other AWHI meetings, participants should not discuss competitive pricing, profitability, allocating markets or customers, or promotion of a particular product or accessory. Okay. So this is our residential focused working group. We have lots of working groups at AWHI, and here we are focused on residential heat pump water heaters. We will do our welcome and introductions for a couple minutes. Then we will turn it over to Ben Foster, Aimee Bailey, Quenten Howard from Rock Rabbit, who are here to talk to us about how heat pump water heaters fit into their innovative electrification concierge program. And then we will close our hour by chatting with my colleague Noah Gabriel from NBI, and he will be talking about a recent cost compression in heat pump water heaters report that we released recently on our website. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we get to there, let's do a little round robin introduction. Is there anybody on the call who may be new to the AWHI Residential Working Group meeting? And raise your hand and I can call on you in order or whatever works. Any new folks? Yeah, Greg, go ahead. Greg, I don't think I'm hearing you. I don't know if any other folks are hearing you. No, I think your audio may be having an issue. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Halsebarth with Kala Systems out of Boston, Massachusetts. Started with Kala earlier this year, and this is my first time joining the residential working group. So looking forward to learn a little bit more.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Great to have you, and love to have all manufacturers. We've had Kala on webinars before. Any quick updates you want to give on Kala before we turn to our next guest?
Absolutely. So what's new with us is we finished building our manufacturing facility here in Massachusetts. We are on track to start shipping product this August.
Cool. Exciting. Great.
We're actually, our units are at a third party being tested for UEF and FHR today as we speak. So are moving along and very excited to be shipping the end of the summer.
Great. Love it. As we like to say, moving and grooving. Well, great. Well, we'll love to connect and have you on for a more full update at a future meeting. But thanks for being on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Turn it over to Daniel Jenkins.
Morning, everybody. Daniel Jenkins with Horizon Currents. I'm over in Oahu, Honolulu, and I'm trying to help the energy usage. I'm just going to say crisis, because they shut down their biggest power plant last year, and the summer meant rolling brownout. So I'm trying to figure out how I can push lower energy usage in homes. Highest energy rates in the country, and right behind right behind air conditioning is our water heaters that nobody's thinking about. So I'm trying to get the information, education out there so that everybody can start using all the tax credits. There's plenty of local ones also that can help out. So I'm here to learn how everybody else is doing it and start instituting it over here.
Fantastic. Great to chat with you, Daniel. Yeah, a lot of solar thermal in Hawaii, right? Yeah. But yeah, curious to see how the heat pump water heater process goes and adoption there. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for being on. Any other folks new to the AWHI Residential Working Group? All right. Going once. If coming on camera is not your thing, feel free to put your name and organization in the chat as well. That works great. Let's do a couple announcements and then we'll dive into our program today. As usual, we have some plugs for some exciting webinars. AWHI and NBI are doing a webinar on decarbonizing commercial kitchens with my colleague Susan Harris will be leading that. That should be a live link in your in the slides there. We're excited to partner with Frontier Energy. There's going to be some live cooking demonstrations at their Electric Kitchens Lab. So you really want to check this out next week. Feel free to register there in the chat. And we're going to be hearing about this later in the working group, but want to highlight two resources. There's actually a third one on there on our website. If you want to go check it out, that's another live link. We have a one-pager on CO2 savings from converting from a fossil gas water heater to a heat pump water heater. Our calculations show about a ton of CO2 saved annually. We're doing a more comprehensive look at this with other types of water heaters as well and other types of pollutants. So expect that later this summer. And then NOAA's cost compression report, which we'll talk about later today, is on the website. You can get a sneak peek if you click on that link now. Noah, if maybe I could put you on the spot before your other presentation and just tell our working group a little bit about our connectivity tracker that is now live on our website.
Yeah, sure thing. More than happy to. Thanks, Joe. So I may have mentioned this on a previous call. I know we've talked about it on our connectivity working group, but we at AWHI are tracking what we think is a comprehensive list of heat pump water heater load shifting studies all in one place. As of our previous announcement and article, there are a couple great new ads that folks have suggested to me that I will definitely integrate into that resource soon. So there are a couple that are pending, but we're at around 20 different heat pump water heater load shifting studies that have been added to this tracker, and they all have some of their summary statistics, like the amount of watt hours shifted and kind of peak demand reduction and a couple other metrics, in addition to a paragraph summarizing the study. That's all included in the connectivity tracker. So if you are working on any sort of heat pump water heater connectivity project or program, definitely check that out. And if you have any studies you think we may have missed, please email info@advancedwaterheatinginitiative.org, or you can hit me at noah@newbuildings.org. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Noah. We'll see you later in the working group. Appreciate that. And yes, let's keep going. Just a real quick plug. We are creating a heat pump water heater photo repository. We get a lot of questions a lot of requests at AWHI. Hey, do you have any good heat pump water heater photos we can use? So we're trying to make one central location for these. And so as we're compiling these over the summer, of course, Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance has some great ones and others. We'd love to have any images you might have. Are these like your personal cell phone images that you want to share with us, or some really professionally done heat pump water heater images that you would like to share publicly with folks so other programs can use them? If you have any good images, please send them our way. We're talking residential or commercial, anything related to heat pump water heaters. And my email is there, joe@newbuildings.org. I really appreciate it. Okay, final slide update. I'm sure everyone on the call has heard now about the potential wind down of the Energy Star program. We wrote a blog post and an op-ed about this. Just wanted to shout out to Energy Star as a crucial partner in so many programs, but of course with heat pump water heaters. Energy Star is really one of the prime movers, first movers, and prime reasons that heat pump water heaters came to be back 20 years ago when they issued challenge to manufacturers to create heat pump water heaters. So we at AWHI have been showing our support for NBI. The USGBC is leading an effort to support Energy Star. You can check it out with that live link there on the slide, and we'll keep you posted on what we hear from the Energy Star front. Okay. Well, let's move into our program now, and we've got you can see Ben Foster online, and I'd like to welcome his colleagues Aimee and Quenten as well. Ben, you may remember, has been on many an AWHI working group meeting in his former role with Barnett Plumbing as one of the leading heat pump water heater installers in the U.S. So he's got a long background with heat pump water heaters, and now he's here to talk about Rockrabbit and his and this organization and how they're moving heat pump water heater adoption forward through this company focused on electrification. So Ben and Aimee and Quenten, I'll let you, I'm happy to drive your slides. You can take control if you like, or you can share screen, whatever works for you all.
Sounds great. Thanks, Joe. Glad to be here. Glad to be back with a new hat on. And yeah, excited to share about what Rockrabbit is doing and the impact that we are making. So I'm going to hand it off to the Rockrabbit co-founder and CEO, Aimee Bailey, and she's going to start us off. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Joe. Hi, everyone. I'm Aimee, co-founder and CEO of Rockrabbit. It's really great to see many familiar faces on the line, as well as quite a few new ones. We're super excited to be here to share a little bit more about Rockrabbit and to discuss incentives, which tend to be, often a topic du jour. So we'll try to keep our comments, so we'll tag team the presentation. We'll try to keep our comments relatively brief, like towards the 10 to 15 minute mark, so we can have sufficient time for questions and discussion. So feel free to, have yours in mind if you want to add them into the chat, or if you'd like to kind of raise hands, we could also, take questions throughout the presentation. We'd be very happy to make this kind of more conversational as well. Just by way of personal intro, my own background, it's a utility background, utility and government background. I spent around 14 or 15 years on the utility side and government side, designing and deploying different programs, many of them incentive programs for renewable energy, such as solar efficiency programs, electrification, some workforce development. And co-founded Rockrabbit in 2023, really to kind of build out the product suite I wish had existed when I was in those prior roles, both as being on the kind of utility and program incentive provider side, as well as kind of seeing the pain points experienced from the participant side. So that's a little bit of the origin story of Rockrabbit, so a little bit more about kind of where it comes from. And the headline really is this on the slide: incentives make building upgrades affordable, and we make incentives easy. So Joe, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, that'd be great. It's a little bit of a full slide. I'm just going to highlight a few things. Just in a nutshell, we're an AI-powered platform to remove friction with incentives. And so that's how you can kind of think of us. We are a mission-driven company. So the call out in the upper right, we do get this question a lot, like, why are we called Rockrabbit? Rockrabbit's another name for an American pika. It's a small, very cute mammal. It happens to be a climate change indicator species, and so that's what our namesake is. In terms of the platform, we're purpose built to streamline incentives, to make it very fast, easy, and reliable to find and claim incentives, and we're focused on retrofit projects to really accelerate participation in these programs and their intended impact. We have a growing footprint with dozens of major programs covered already across the US and growing, with thousands of geographies covered. I think the numbers on the right are actually out of date. They're all higher now. So sorry about that. I should have pulled the latest numbers. But we can go ahead to the next slide. Just taking a step back, I think probably this audience knows a lot of this extremely well. Maybe there are some folks that are newer to incentives, and so just for kind of level setting purposes, there are billions available for incentives every year, actually, from a variety of sources. A major funding source for these programs, these customer efficiency programs, comes through public benefits charges. Oftentimes it's, also other government agencies designing and deploying programs to meet policy goals, such as community energy agencies, air districts, state energy offices, et cetera. And these incentives really are important for making these projects viable and to making these projects pencil. Industry reports, estimate it's roughly billions per year nationally. For anyone who's been in the sector for a while knows incentives have been a very crucial part of the value chain for decades, and they will be for decades to come. But accessing them can be a challenge, especially when you have kind of a nice problem, in that sometimes there are multiple programs available and multiple programs applicable to a single project. And so we think of the pain points in terms of the different buckets mentioned here. Accessing them can be, time consuming, costly, and risky for contractors and homeowners, ultimately lowering participation. And what we see is, especially from groups that could use it the most. And sorry, I just saw the chat. I think it does, the Pokemon character Pikachu does come from Pika as well. Thanks for pointing that out. The administrative complexity and transitioning back to the slide. The administrative complexity and overhead can also be very challenging on the upstream side, from the utility perspective, from the program implementer perspective. So that's definitely the case as well. On the next slide, this is really our focus. We're a purpose-built platform to provide a comprehensive solution to try to reduce friction with each of these different steps. So on the next slide, you can see kind of a preview of what our product looks like. Our platform and app, we strive to make it incentives easy to really enable these projects to move forward. This is kind of a preview of our contractor-facing experience on the right, although with kind of dummy programs or fake program names added in there. A contractor can pull up our app to what we say is pre-qualify a project for stacked incentives, such that we're helping them take into account these stacking constraints when they're having that kitchen table conversation. And that can really help build trust with their customers and help increase conversion. And for those projects that do move forward, then they can then use the app to claim the incentive funds. And so we have a single checklist with supported submission. And so a big focus of ours, which Ben will speak to in greater detail and has more credibility than myself to speak to this, but we do focus on making these programs more accessible, especially to mom and pops or to smaller contractors who have historically maybe struggled actually participating in these programs or enabling these programs to be offered through their to their customers. And so that's really kind of a big focus of ours, kind of democratizing access. So this is the contractor experience, but just to kind of highlight one more thing before turning it over to Ben. In addition to working directly with contractors on this kind of TurboTax-like experience, and apologies, the formatting got messed up a little bit there on the slide. We can also work upstream directly with utilities and government agencies and their program implementers, such that we're streamlining at the source. And so for those types of engagements, which we can talk a little bit more about in a few minutes, there are a couple additional user experiences that we have built out. One is a white labeled portal for the program participants to easily participate and access kind of a unified program view. And then the other is a program admin portal for the incentive provider or the program implementer to carry out program management functions. So that's kind of the comprehensive product suite. We also do, just for context, if it's of interest, leverage a variety of backend capabilities, such as data integrations, automation, and there are several different AI use cases. And the intent of all of that is to improve the user experience and to really streamline the user experience. So that's a big focus of ours as well. So that's kind of a high-level summary of the product. Why don't I turn it over to you, Ben, to cover the next slide.
Sounds great. Thanks, Aimee. So yeah, I wanted to talk about like a real life experience. My background is I have that real life experience. So coming from the trades and having been in plumbing for 13 years, having done thousands of selling heat pump water heaters and installing heat pump water heaters, I saw how Rock Rabbit could benefit a business and wanted to give a case study of how it's worked with one of the Rock Rabbit customers and worked in a really profound way. One little caveat, I will say that I guess it's probably preaching to the choir a bit here, but I often, in my previous role at Barnett, would get asked about like what are the solutions to the problems when it comes to market transformation, and I would always say there isn't a solution. Cost compression is part of the solution. The 120-volt water heater is part of the solution, and I think Rock Rabbit is part of that solution. It's a needed part of the solution, having a software solution to some of the problems that help with accessibility to rebates and to decarbonization. So that being said, I'm going to focus on this customer of ours, Providence Water Heater, and how they benefited from Rock Rabbit. So the challenge that they were facing, which is not uncommon, is they were participating in rebates. They were offering rebates to their customers, but they were managing them manually. And it was a full-time job to do that. They were manually discovering, or I guess not discovering, they were manually trying to keep track of what rebates were out there and manually submitting the claims and then manually tracking the claims. And that led to, one, it was time consuming, but it was also, it's prone to errors, and those errors lead to delays or even rejections of claims. And as their project volume grew, all of those errors were just magnified and became bigger, as well as the administrative burden of dealing with all of the documentation and the paperwork and everything else. And so they got to a point where they were at a crossroads where they either needed to hire additional staff or keep spending hours managing incentives manually, or even see our heat pumps and rebates something that fits our business model and something we want to keep doing. And so enter Rock Rabbit as a solution for those potential crossroads. And Rock Rabbit was able to simplify the entire process from discovery to submission to tracking. And by doing that, by them having access to Rock Rabbit, Providence Water Heaters was able to shift the tasks to office type tasks to something that could be done in the field, kind of in stream of their sales cycle with their salespeople in the field, with their installers, and it alleviated that administrative burden and also sped up the process of accessing rebates and increased or decreased the error rate. And so that helped increase sales and also shorten the amount of time before rebates were paid out. So lots of benefits, and so much that Rock Rabbit offers that we're not going into, that it offers aspects and features that Rock Rabbit has that help to that end. So, but one of the pretty, I think, profound things that Anthony, the owner of Providence Water Heater, said was with Rock Rabbit, he was able to submit everything at the job site in 15 minutes or less. All the data entry was done, and they're able to move on to their next job. So the outcome with Rock Rabbit was that they were, what took hours now took minutes. They didn't need to hire additional staff, and they had higher quality submissions, which resulted in higher confidence in what they were offering, as well as quicker payout and better success, better efficiency. So another little, I guess, kind of parenthetical from my experience is from my experience selling and installing water heaters, it kind of surfaced that there are three key aspects that help sell a heat pump water heater, which is very pivotal to market transformation. And that is cost, convenience, and confidence. And so the cost has to be a price point where the homeowner is willing to pay it and they see the value, which rebates help with. Convenience has to do with how easy is it for the homeowner to interact with the contractor, and how easy is it for the contractor to perform the job. And then confidence is related to does the homeowner have confidence in the contractor, and do they have confidence in what the contractor is offering? So that is, in a lot of cases with heat pump water heaters, the rebates as well as the equipment or product that they're putting in. And so with Rock Rabbit, a big component of the confidence side is that there's kind of this third-party validation that gives contractors confidence in what they're offering as far as rebates, and also gives the homeowner confidence that these rebates are legit, that they're not just something the contractor is saying they're going to get, but who knows if they're really out there. You might have seen there's a lot of kind of, they look like kind of scammy solar ads that you might see out there, and it's hard to know, is this legitimate, is it not? And so Rock Rabbit can also help the contractor build that legitimacy, which and then builds value and allows them to sell the job and install the heat pump water heater and everything that kind of follows after that to make it happen. So yeah, I think that's all I have for the case study, and then I'll pass it back to Aimee for the next slide.
Great, thanks, Ben. And I'll just cover this one briefly. And I saw a question from you, Chris, in the chat, so we'll get over to that in just 1 second. We also wanted to just touch on the incentive provider kind of engagement, with what that entails. We're super excited, very thrilled to be working with Palo Alto Utilities to support their program. So this slide, a little bit of an eyesore in terms of word count. So sorry about that. I figured you may have access to it if you'd like to refer to it later. But this slide outlines some of the kind of pain points that they were experiencing, which may sound familiar if there are other utilities or government agencies, on the line. Kind of smaller set staff, manual, sometimes disjointed processes, and often kind of significant challenges trying to figure out how to derive insight from program participation, given a lot of the data isn't structured using kind of conventional means. And so we deployed our platform together with CPAU to help them launch a very kind of comprehensive suite of incentives, including on the water heating side, as well as HVAC and some other measures as well. So this was just launched a few months ago, so it's early stages. These are kind of preliminary results based on kind of limited marketing. And so would love to come back at a later time, or Palo Alto Utilities could at a later time, to kind of share more about the results. But overall, we've been very happy with the amount of uptake in terms of facilitating kind of discovery of relevant incentives, both Palo Alto's as well as the stacked incentives that are relevant for projects, in terms of the volume of projects processed and rebates processed, and kind of uptake on the platform. So very excited about that. And this type of engagement involves the 3 different kind of parts of the user experience. The kind of trade ally has access to the kind of contractor app. Then there's the white labeled experience for the end participant. And then CPAU and their program implementers access the program admin portal. All right, just on the, I also wanted to acknowledge the American Public Power Association. So this was through a deed grant that helped fund this particular pilot. So very appreciative of that grant. All right, and then just on the next slide, there's some contact info as well. But yeah, would love to, I'm just kind of looking over here at the chat now to see kind of what questions there are. Happy to take additional questions as well. Should we go ahead and do that, Joe? Sorry, I just saw you.
Yeah. No, this sounds great. Yeah, thanks so much, Aimee. So yeah, why don't we go to Chris's questions first, and I'll read it out. Very interesting niche, and this definitely seems to have a lot of value, but what's the business model? Okay, how do y'all make money?
Yeah, great question. And so there is a market for rebate processing. And so oftentimes, contractors may be working, if they're doing HVAC as well, for instance, they may be working with HERS raters or other companies that provide different services, for home service businesses, and often kind of rebate support is one of them. And so we model our pricing off to contractors, off of kind of market rate. For what incentive support kind of goes for in different regional markets, although the platform that we provide is more comprehensive. We have an end-to-end platform all the way from discovery through to submission. When you're providing, or when a contractor is working with a third party like that for rebate support, it's often just for that kind of submission and tracking component. So that's on the contractor side. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you. I thought that was it. And I didn't want to let you finish without saying thank you, but please go on.
Okay, sorry. I'll just mention one more thing, kind of on the upstream side. And so if we're working, directly with an incentive provider, or, often is the case, we're working with a program implementer, such as a traditional program implementer where we're a technology partner, then in that case, we're a part of the program implementation team. And so it's kind of through the program implementation costs that cover our fees, just like any other kind of technology component in a program implementation would be covered.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. And just to repeat it back to you, you sort of get some of the fixed costs through the implementer and then get sort of follow-on subscription or transaction-based costs through the contractor side, not by charging the customers or the end users, if you will.
Yeah, that's right. And it kind of depends on how the incentive provider wants to structure it. In some cases, they want to cover not just access to their own incentives as through those implementation fees, but also support access to those layered ones. So that's kind of very, very much dependent on how the incentive provider wants to arrange it. But we don't kind of double dip, if that's kind of one of the thoughts or questions.
No, that wasn't. I heard you very clearly saying you are mission driven. That's just why I was curious about how, who keeps the lights on. So thank you.
Yeah, and I guess follow up on that. Are consumers using RockRabbit at all, or is it just primarily for contractors? Are consumers looking to find rebates, or is it just intended for contractors?
We're B2B, and so when consumers engage with us, it's through one of the white label deployments.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. Daniel, I see your comment next, and it's more of a comment, but I'd love to hear you, Daniel Bailey, if you want to come on mic. Otherwise, I can read your comment just on your experience. Just maybe talk in general about some of the complexities with these Excalibur errors, and maybe explain a little bit about what those are, and then how you saw this program help them out. Do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Thanks. I definitely can speak to this because Excalibur has had issues where they'll purchase a unit because we are a midstream program going through the purchasing point. And after the purchasing, maybe there's something where the resident backs out on the program or wants to delay it to a different time, and they end up installing that unit that was assigned to that resident into a different place. And so it's very important to have the serial number match the resident that is there, because that's well, most programs are based on energy savings within the home. So for us, Excalibur was continually having errors, just connecting the dots. And poor little Anthony Ackerman seems to be doing all the work with hundreds of uploads that he was trying to do. So we continually followed up with him, but this has solved that problem for him and him and others, which it's not just Excalibur. They only use Excalibur as one example point. But and I just want to send my thanks and testify that this program does work for them.
Cool. Thank you. I don't know. Yeah, just good testimonial. Daniel is with Clear Result and runs the Gold State Rebate Program. And Excalibur is a plumbing contractor, correct, Daniel? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
okay.
I can.
Sorry, yes.
I can
They
add
are
some
plumbing
color
contractors,
for that.
yes.
Yeah, so Anthony Ackerman owns Providence water heaters and Excalibur water heaters. So same owner, that was the connection there.
Got it. Okay.
For our case study that was used.
And to a further point, just to let you know, we are the implementer of the program. We do not process the incentive on behalf of the contractor. I think that was another comment further down the line in the chat.
Got it.
Clear Results and ICF and a few other agencies, we are implementers for the utility partners, not for the contractor. We don't process the incentive for them, just to be clear.
Okay, thanks for that. Great, let's get to a couple other questions, and we'll conclude this part at the 40-minute mark. Amy's asking, is this only available for residential projects, or does it also cover commercial incentives or for small or medium businesses?
Yeah, so right now we've primarily covered residential programs, and the residential programs that also cover, small businesses, since oftentimes it's the same program. But we've expanded into some commercial programs and are expanding further. So that's definitely, there's going to be more of that in the Rock Rabbit platform soon.
Great. Thanks. Nice. Another good testimony in the chat from Rodney, but we'll go. Amy does have another question. Beyond Golden State rebates, what has been your experience in working with or trying to work with other California investor-owned utility incentive programs?
Yeah, so in California, at least, the tech program is the major vehicle for heat pump, water heating, as well as HVAC incentives. And there have been a variety of different kind of buckets of money channeled through that, through the tech program. And so we support contractors and with a lot of tech rebates. So I have a great working relationship, I think, with the program implementers over there, Energy Solutions, and have definitely supported participation in many of the kind of tranches of tech funding. In terms of the kind of IOUs, we focused largely on heat pump HVAC, heat pump water heating to date, and so most of that money is going through through tech as opposed to through PG&E, SDG&E, SCE, but certainly looking to kind of engage further. We've had a lot of kind of friendly discussions with the different IOUs. Would love to kind of support participation in their programs further. I hope that answers the question, but yeah, happy to answer it further if I didn't quite understand.
Yeah, I think I'd bring up one more program that we've had a lot of interest in. And so for the Energy Savings Assistance Program, heat pumps are an eligible measure, but from my understanding, it doesn't get a lot of traction. And those programs are quite opaque in terms of applying. I know that PG&E has kind of a limited set of contractors that they work with for those programs. But yeah, I think especially when we think about that funding pot, it's quite large. So yeah, that's probably one angle that I'd be especially interested in the future.
Yeah, we haven't worked on supporting ESA programs to date, but we've engaged with several folks that are kind of ESA contractors. And so yeah, but love to. It's interesting to know that regarding kind of uptake for that measure and through the ESA program. So would love to look into that further.
Great, thanks, Amy. Great, and maybe so Jeff's maybe building on that. Jeff is asking if you've been primarily focused on the California market we've been talking about, or are you working in other states?
Yeah, so we're working in 6 states right now, and we're adding 30 states in the coming month or two. And so we're in the process of national expansion at this time.
Great. All right.
And then,
yeah, Jim is asking. I was going to say, yeah, Jim is asking. He's bringing us back to heat pump water heaters. Are they different than any other rebates? Anything special about your heat pump water heater processing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, what we do see is probably, and thanks in large part to Ben as well as other members of this group, we are seeing kind of more interesting program designs that relate to kind of specifically emergency replacement and kind of loaner programs. So we do support programs that have those design features. So that's a little bit different, I would say. I don't think we've seen that on the HVAC side, although that might be coming at some point. It hasn't kind of trickled over to HVAC. So I'd say that's a difference. I'm not sure. Ben, did you have any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, broadly, the programs I think are very similar. There are some different kind of documentation on efficiency ratings and sizing related to code and things like that. But aside from the very kind of technical things, I would say the rebate programs themselves are pretty similar.
Cool. Great. Well, I think that is all the time we have. Aimee and Ben, thanks so much for joining us. A really great presentation. Great. Really excited to hear about Rock Rapid and all the great work you're doing. So look forward to hearing more as y'all continue to grow. And as usual, you know, AWHI does offer spotlights to lots of competitors in similar spaces. We did, you know, you see in the chat, Cooper, who's a good friend, has been on. He was featured, I think, in our February residential working group. So we do like to spotlight businesses doing innovative things. So we really appreciate Rock Rabbit coming on and being with us today. So thanks so much. And now
Thank
I'll
you.
turn it over to my colleague, Noah Gabriel, to talk us through this, his cost compression report and what are some of the key takeaways. Noah, take it away.
Sweet. All right, just took control here. Thanks to Rock Rabbit for a great presentation. And it's definitely a good time to what I'll be talking about today. So this is the same title as my presentation from the Hot Water Forum, and I thought I would leave it just because it's I thought it was a little bit funny and you know, a little bit more fun of a title than just cost compression report, right? So it is definitely an entertaining and somewhat dramatic subject sometimes when you get into just how expensive installations for heat pump water heaters can be. So I thought this was appropriate. And just a quick overview before I dive into it. There is indeed a report that's been released that I worked on and had help from some other Advanced Water Heating Initiative folks. And basically the meat of it is part data analysis, part conversation with contractors. So a handful of connections through the Advanced Water Heating Initiative who are installers were kind enough to speak with me about their experiences in the field. And I also had a few email conversations with some others. So all a bunch of very experienced contractors who have done dozens or more heat pump water heater installations. So huge kudos to them, and really appreciate them sharing their experiences, which I have then synthesized in this report, which is available on the Advanced Water Heater Initiative's resources page. We also do have a data analysis component. We surveyed AWHI users who have installed their own heat pump water heaters or had a heat pump water heater installed in their house. And they were able to provide us information on where that was located and how much the installation cost. So just creating a bit of a data set there. And lastly, we'll talk about some price comparisons between California and the Midwest, both of which had 120 volt heat pump water heater studies happen. And we were able to break out some of the bills from contractors for those two studies and compare the costs across two different regions with very different cost profiles. So without further ado, I'll get into it. One of the major barriers, of course, is the first cost for heat pump water heaters. And what I mean there is the initial payment for contractors to actually put this in, as well as lumping in the purchase of the equipment itself, right? And a big point to note here is that the heat pump water heater installation is often more than the equipment itself. We found, and I'll show this slide in a second, that the average heat pump water heater installation cost was about $2,700 based on 70 plus rows from folks that we surveyed. So that really is quite expensive, especially when your typical heat pump water heater costs between $1,800 and $2,500. Sometimes the 80-gallon sizes, especially if they do have a mixing valve, can exceed that. But again, on average, heat pump water heater installations are costing more than the base equipment. So that is really quite expensive, and it contributes to significant sticker shock, or the phenomenon when a homeowner gets a quote thinking that, okay, maybe this will be in line with some other technologies they've had in the past. For example, if they had an electric resistance water heater or a gas water heater, and expecting it to be, you know, a real cost, right? It's a decade or so old water heater. They're having replacement. They expect some sort of cost, but then it often is quite a sticker shock when it's maybe twice as expensive as their legacy technology, right? So that's really a problem for heat pump water heater adoption because we don't want to miss a critical window. Because if they choose to go back to electric resistance or back to gas, that'll be another decade before there's an opportunity to basically engage with them and further market penetration. So just to level set a little bit here with some first costs, I do think there's a bit of California bias happening, and I'll acknowledge that for electric resistance and gas costs. We could definitely see these be cheaper in other parts of the country, but for electric resistance and gas, we expect that the equipment cost notably is going to be far cheaper. And the sources here are from Home Depot and Lowe's, as well as some manufacturer websites, giving a range of average quotes, and we kind of just compiled that based on a variety of sources. So as you can see here, in some instances, gas insulation is around the same as an 120 volt and not too far off from 240. But because of the extreme gap in equipment cost between the two technologies, the total first cost is often just so much higher. And the other thing I want to note here from analyzing a whole lot of tech or data from the California tech program is that the range for 240 volt heat pump water heater installs is also far higher than that of electric resistance or gas, just because the potential retrofits and infrastructure upgrades like panel upgrades or service upgrades can really balloon the cost. So while this chart is clearly showing that heat pump water heaters on average are going to cost more than legacy technologies to install, that's not even capturing the full range of potentials, right? Where you can really have some worst case scenarios that we want to mitigate. And it's not all bad. I'll get into this later, but there are a lot of occurrences where it is more expensive, even if there are some ways to get around that I will touch on. Just a bit on the research background, PNNL did fund part of this research, which is awesome. So huge shout out to them. And mainly the focus was on installation costs rather than equipment. We, as the Advanced Water Heating Initiative, are not building any of these products, right? We're not going to suddenly come out with our own low-cost equipment. So we felt that by reaching out to our installer network, doing kind of cost analysis here, we'd able to uncover more and potentially find more impacts on the installation side, which we believe is more flexible. Part of the survey data collection that I alluded to before is we sent out an Advanced Water Heating Initiative survey to our server. And so thanks a ton for everyone who filled that out. We looked at the cost of the installation itself, where it was installed, what year it was installed, and importantly, whether it was DIY or if a contractor installed it, because of course, that makes a massive difference. And I'm seeing some comments that are super valid, and I'll address those in just a moment. So as one might expect, DIY installs were significantly cheaper. And part of the reason we wanted to collect this information is it can really help us see a stripped out cost without labor. So basically looking at what does it cost to install a heat pump water heater, not including the heat pump water itself, but still taking into account materials like piping, potential equipment, all of that, right? Because that can still add up, as well as having to do things like, any cost related to removing gas and that kind of thing. So we found that on average throughout the US, again, with a slight West Coast bias, that we saw contractor installations were around 2.7 thousand, again, without the heat pump water heater equipment itself. So that would bring the total to about $5,000. And then for DIY installs, often less than 1,000. Again, some folks just said it was free. Maybe they already had a lot of the parts handy. And then some spent $2,000 or $3,000, but on average, with the heat pump water heater then included, it would be around 3,000. So obviously that install is going to make a big difference. And so now we want to get into some of the factors that are driving those high installation prices. And by understanding these various factors, it'll help us kind of dig deeper into them and see which ones have more wiggle room for going down potentially. Rock Rabbit already touched on some of the rebate submission process difficulties, but I think that's a well-known fact in our industry that a lot of rebate submission processes are fairly onerous and it can take a long time. from some of the contractors I spoke to, this could even lead them to not wanting to participate in a rebate submission process simply because it is not worth their time. And even if it is, those costs can then inflate the cost of the rebate submission process can inflate the cost of the install simply because those are additional labor hours that fairly the contractor should be compensated for, right? So it's really critical to have that rebate submission process take as little time as possible. Driving distance is also a big factor, as especially in markets where contractors are charging a fairly premium hourly rate. Just by having to drive 2 or 3 hours, that's already dramatically inflating the cost of the heat pump water heater install. And why would I list this? Wouldn't this be the case for gas and electric installs as well? The thing is that there are far fewer heat pump water heater installers than contractors for legacy technologies. Therefore, you might have to contact a heat pump water heater installer that lives a lot further away, and then they'll have to rack up that driving time, right? Installer skill can also make a big difference here. This is not a knock, obviously, against any contractors. It's simply stating that this is a newer technology, and therefore fewer contractors have adequate experience installing heat pump water heaters, and there are simply too few installers as well. This leads to a scenario where newer installers are simply taking more time, as it takes anyone learning a new skill, right? These are simply a newer relative technology, even if the heat pump technology in general is a little bit older. Funnily enough, tank volume can also impact the amount of time. It's not necessarily saying that one person will spend more time on a larger tank, but once you hit a certain tank size, usually 65 or 80 gallons, it can require 2 contractors to physically move the tank, especially if they're going up and down stairs or navigating in through tight corridors or in a tight part of the house, right? Just simply because the weight increases enough where one person, even with a mechanical dolly, probably can't move it themselves or has to have some support if they're going up and down stairs. And what I noticed from analyzing study data is that a lot of times with the higher size tanks, and I've seen this in person as well, is that you really do need 2 installers, and then that ends up simply multiplying the time spent by 2, which is a very large portion of the cost, right? So it's simple to see how higher tank volume then equates to more contractors needed, equates to more time on site and more expense. Plumbing is also a consideration. Heat pump water heaters can be more difficult to plumb than other types of legacy water heaters. That is because unlike electric resistance water heaters, they do produce condensate. And that means you have to have a condensate drainage solution. That can be as simple as having a gravity-fed option. For example, in a laundry room, you might already have a drain there. But that, if there's not, you might have to have a condensate pump, which adds some additional cost for purchasing the pump itself, as well as having the installer do it. And some installers simply don't want to take jobs that don't have gravity-fed, that can't be dealt with by using gravity-fed condensate drains. There are also some units that are side-fed, which plumbers may not always like it as much if they're used to older technologies that have top-fed piping. And then mixing valves are also a thing somewhat unique to heat pump water heaters, especially because heat pump water heaters often do not produce hot water at as high a volume as gas or electric resistance models. And to make up for that fact, you can employ a mixing valve, keeping the water heater temperature at a higher temperature and therefore essentially increasing thermal storage. However, a mixing valve often does cost several $100s, and I've seen plumbers charge as much as $500 to put one on in addition to that, so they really can rack up costs. Just a quick note on electrical here. Y'all are very familiar with service and panel upgrades, but other things come into account like circuit runs and having to put in a dedicated outlet or a 240 volt outlet, and that can require an electrician to come on site. I have definitely spoken with some contractors who acknowledge that working with electrical or electricians who are not part of their own staff can be challenging because it's an additional layer of coordination. In addition, the homeowner themselves may have to coordinate with both the electrical person and the contractor, which your average homeowner is often not really prepared to do, nor should they need to, right? So it's that can create a bit of a difficult conundrum having to have multiple people coming on site to do this. I know we're running near the end of time here, so I do want to end on a positive note, talk about some potential solutions. Employing things like packaged rates can be excellent. That's where you have a somewhat guaranteed rate with a bit of wiggle room, but not too much, so that a homeowner knows in advance what they're paying, and it simplifies the bidding process. This has been successfully employed by programs like Efficiency Maine. Rock Rabbit alluded to this with 120-volt heat pump water heaters. They are a great solution when you're going from gas or propane to a heat pump water heater. We also know about from a previous AWHI call that a flexible voltage or 120 volt to 240 volt heat pump water heater is soon to hit the market. That basically provides the same benefit as 120 volt, where you can install it without having to do electrical infrastructure upgrades, but then you have the option of going to a greater capacity later and increasing your first hour rating and hourly recovery. I have talked to some folks about simplified lead generation as well, which is a great solution because using things like Google AdWords or banner ads or all that kind of thing, right? Like using ads on YouTube can reduce the time it takes for plumbers to find jobs, and therefore they can pass that those cost savings onto the consumer through a reduced quote. Heat pump water heater only installers have also been raised at a number of conferences I've been at as a great idea for increasing the number of installers by not having to have heat pump water heater installers be full licensed plumbers, right? You can basically add more folks to the workforce who are heat pump water heater specialists. And then lastly, affordable training is great. We definitely acknowledge that contractors who are learning how to install heat pump water heaters or sending apprentices to do so are losing out on potential work hours. So it's critical to not overcharge them or hopefully even compensate them to attend trainings, right? And become heat pump water heater installers in addition to their other roles. So with that, I know we were fairly brief. I did see a couple things in the chat here and want to address a couple comments and questions.
Yeah, thanks, Noah. Yeah, Chris is first asking, did you track how much of the cost is from changeover from gas as opposed to replacing an electric resistance water heater?
Yeah, so we did not track in this particular case, but yeah, definitely a lot of it is going to be changing, like fuel cost, fuel switching. We did address this in the 120 volt heat pump water heater report published in 2023. That's also on AWHI's resources page, and that has a ton of information on. I did a big deep dive into the tech programs, heat pump water heater rebates, and they give a lot more information on that and really break things down by how much was like fuel switching costs and infrastructure.
Yeah, great. Cooper makes a good point about the maybe California rebate cost being inflated because of the rebates. Yes. Did that factor into the data analysis, or is the rebate inflation hard to take out or understand?
It is, well, while it's hard to exactly quantify, I think it's definitely acknowledged that it is a thing. A big part of I think rebate implementation that needs to change somewhat is having a clear mechanism for passing through the incentive. I've talked to other rebate program implementers as well that don't have a clear mechanism. Basically, it's a midstream rebate where the contractor receives a payment, and then it's pretty hard to enforce that payment going through. We've seen a similar thing in the electric vehicle market where dealers receive an incentive, and that's very loosely passed through, right? So really just having more regulation there is critical. I completely agree, Cooper, that often it is not passed on, or it simply gets almost added as they tack on. We saw that for 120 volt heat pump water heater study where prices were certainly a bit inflated as a result of the tech rebate.
Okay, maybe a quick, since we're at time, a quick response to Carl, who says, who's asking about if you noticed venting playing a role in any costing. We saw condensate. Did venting come up?
Yeah, for sure. So venting definitely can add a few $100s of costs. Most manufacturers do sell venting kits. We've noticed for the most part that it's pretty rare that you actually need it. Louver doors seem like a more common option, and those are relatively inexpensive. So it definitely can add costs, but it's just a rare case where you actually need it, because you can usually find some sort of creative solution to use louvering that's just going to be cheaper for the most part.
Cool. Yeah. Or in my case, we've got ours in a utility wall closet. We did wall grates between that and we shoot that cold air behind our fridge. So yeah, a lot of creative solution opportunity. All right. Well, thanks. A lot of great conversation in the chat. We are a little over time. Thanks, Noah, for being on. Thanks, Aimee and Ben, for their presentations as well. We'll send out the slides and recording as usual and talk to you all next month. Thanks so much.